Oh, and Kenya's President William Ruto is on an official state visit to Rwanda today to consolidate and strengthen relations within the East African community. Paul Kagame was one of the first leaders to meet with Ruto in Nairobi when he was elected into office in September last year. Now, the two countries have, over the last decade, shared strong economic and security ties. And Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo live for us in Kigali this hour. Ziyanda, good morning to you, and good to talk to you from another part of the continent. But these are two East African giants, if we could describe them in that way. They share strong economic ties, but they also come at a very delicate time, this particular state visit by the Kenyan president, because security is of the essence given the riots that have been taking place in Kenya.
Absolutely. So there are several security issues that the two leaders would share. It's the riots in Kenya that have been taking place over the last couple of days. But also you'll know that the West, in particular France and Germany, have constantly accused Rwanda, led by, of course, President Kagame, of interfering and funding the M23 rebels in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which, of course, borders Rwanda where we are. So the two countries, as you're saying, giants in the East African community, they've both pledged to bolster the ties, and Kenya has constantly played a role of trying to be a mediator of sorts when it comes to the breakdown in relations between the DRC and Rwanda. In fact, at the weekend, during the governing party, the RPF's elective Congress, where Paul Kagame was re-elected as the chairman for another 5 years, Kagame also somewhat took a swipe at the DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi, basically saying that it doesn't help that you have presidents and leaders running to go cry on microphones in the West instead of reaching out to their neighbors right here, saying he doesn't understand why the Congo and Rwanda can't just sit around a table and discuss these issues. And you'll know it goes back to the history of the interference of the Western colonial powers still having an influence in African countries, which is another issue that these two state leaders are expected to discuss. At some stage, Kenya was Rwanda's largest trading partner, so lots to discuss. Agriculture, transport, and air and land are some of the memoranda of understanding that the two countries have entered into.
Ziyanda, are you at all able to attend this particular state visit? It is quite an important one, and we'd love to bring those visuals to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika.
So earlier on, we were told that we'd have an opportunity, as we do at home when there are state visits, to interact with leaders of both countries. But just before we went on air, I'd say about 30 minutes ago, we just got word that due to the time constraints, that's according to the Rwandan embassy that has been, facilitating us as the media here, saying that due to the time constraints of both the president, the engagements with the media will no longer be taking place and will be taken on another, tour or another part of the city. So you'll read into that what you will, Kolia. Also, another issue at the top of the agenda, something that's also taking place at home, is the neighboring East African country of Uganda's anti-homosexuality bill, which is one of the questions I would have posed, whether or not these two leaders are in support of what the parliament did there. I know the EFF today also going to picket outside the Ugandan embassy, but there are a lot of issues that all these countries share, especially Rwanda, Koli, because it's bordered by so many countries, the DRC, Tanzania, Kenya, as well, you know, I'm forgetting the other country, or Uganda, I should say. So, you know, these issues are of importance because they have an impact on the migration of people from one country to the next. So, for instance, there are about 100,000 Rwandans in Kenya and about 6,000 in Rwanda. And whether or not such things would have an impact, but at the top of the agenda, one expects that President William Ruto will be discussing this breakdown in relations between the DRC and Rwanda over those M23 rebels who continue then their offense in the east part of the DRC.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much. And indeed, as you've heard her touch on the latter part of her response, it's got to do with the ongoing pickets that we are told are going to be taking place here in South Africa by the EFF outside the embassy of Uganda. And I think in the last few days, President Ruto quoted in some media outlets as suggesting that Kenya is not so welcoming in as far as the homosexuality unions are concerned. And so some critical questions to ask of these African leaders. Thank you for the time being, my colleague Ziyanda Ngcobo, live for us in Kigali, there, the capital of Rwanda.